Welcome to the Sports Talk with the Byalls. Each week we'll discuss, debate, and answer tough questions in the sports world. Before we get talking this week, we'd like to congratulate the girls basketball team on winning last night and advance you to the sectional semifinals against Huntington North on Friday. Austin, what was your biggest takeaway from last week in the sports world?
Well, Zach, I think it's going to have to be the Lions for me. As you know, last week on the show, I kind of gave them a little bit of hate.
You did.
Said they weren't going to compete, and they competed. And in my opinion, I think they definitely should have won that game.
Yeah, so we will talk about that game. Let's first talk about the Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs now advance to their fourth Super Bowl in 5 years as they beat the Ravens 17-10, now becoming the third team in NFL history to make the Super Bowl in a 5-year span. So the Chiefs have been criticized all year, kind of, at the end of the year, especially when they were 2-4 on one stretch. Should we just basically say now in the playoffs that the Chiefs are just the Chiefs, and whatever team Mahomes is on, we should just probably not bet against him?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, coming into the playoffs, in the back of my mind, I always knew the Chiefs were the Chiefs, so I wasn't going to bet against them, but I also thought that just the way the Chiefs have played this year, with how many drops they'd had and all that, I wasn't fully confident in them. But, again, I think they've proved it now, and I think that the narrative should be the narrative for years to come for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, well, Mahomes is 14-3 in the playoffs in his career. That is currently the best among active quarterbacks in the NFL by far. But speaking of not winning in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson falls to 2-4 in the playoffs. Do you buy the narrative that Lamar can't play well in the playoffs?
I think somewhat you have to buy into it. I mean, I don't like the narrative that he can't win because I think he's a very good player. But, I mean, the stats don't lie and just the numbers don't lie, especially his last performance was not the best. I feel like he was trying to do too much, kind of try to prove himself to Patrick Mahomes, which when you do that, you just make mistakes. So I think the narrative somewhat kind of been playing out for Lamar.
Yeah, well, Lamar, through his 6 career games in the playoffs, has a total of 9 TDs, 6 interceptions, and 6 fumbles. So obviously when those numbers are like that, that's obviously not going to result in a lot of winning. In that game, though, I feel like the Ravens went away from what they do best, which is run the football, and they only ran the ball 6 times in that game, I believe. And so every time you do that, you take away what's kind of got you there. It's not going to end in a good result. They had a couple plays in that game where they had a shot. Zay Flowers fumbled on the 1-yard line, which really cost them, and then there was Lamar threw in the triple coverage of Isaiah Likely there, which people don't realize Isaiah Likely held up his hand like he was wide open, and Lamar underthrew him, but I think Likely could take the blame for that. And obviously people thought that could have been a penalty, but we'll save talking about the rest for another different time. Let's talk about the Lions and 49ers. The 49ers advanced to their second Super Bowl in 5 years. Brock Purdy is now the lowest drafted quarterback to ever start in the Super Bowl. There have been 2 undrafted quarterbacks to start in the Super Bowl. But we mentioned it earlier. You apologized to Lions fans, even though they did lose. The Lions were up 24-7 at halftime. The 49ers went on a 27-7 run to end the game. What do you think changed that caused the 49ers to go on that run?
I think the Lions' miscues and the drops and the turnovers and all that. Again, the Lions, I think, shot themselves in the foot there. Just too many drops, too many missed opportunities. I mean, honestly, I don't really think the 49ers defense played that insane. I mean, they forced a fumble. They did play better in the second half, but again, I mean, I think it's all on the Lions. I mean, I think most people would say that. The Lions just had too many miscues. I mean, you can't just miss out on opportunities like they did and expect to win a football game on the road.
Yeah, well, so we mentioned they were up 24-7 at halftime. To start the second half, the 49ers kicked the field goal. The next possession, the Lions went down and turned it over on downs. That was the Josh Reynolds drop on 4th down. The Lions could have kicked the 45-yard field goal there, which they decided not to. And then the next drive, Ayuk had that 51-yard catch that deflected off the defender's hand and helmet, which resulted in that possession, a 6-yard touchdown from Ayuk. And then literally the next play for the Lions, Gibbs fumbles on a miscommunication between him and Goff. CMC later scores the touchdowns. The Lions go 3 and out. Moody kicks a field goal, and the Lions turn over on downs again. And so did you agree with Dan Campbell for going for it twice, or did you feel like that he's kind of been doing that all year and that's what you got to stick with?
Yeah, I definitely think the second option. I mean, that's who Dan Campbell is. People are mad at him for it, but I trust him in making his calls, and that's the type of coach he is, so I was not shocked. I don't think people should be mad about it. I know there will be people mad about it, but I agree with it.
Yeah, there were certainly people on social media mad about it, saying that he's going to lose the locker room and all that stuff. I felt like, well, he's been doing it all year. I feel like that's what the guys have trusted him in, and the guys love him for who he is. He doesn't shy away from what he is. I mean, his opening press conference, he kind of like, everyone's like, this guy's kind of a doofus in the way he talks, and then he came out and they struggled early, but he kind of proved against that narrative. But let's move on to the Super Bowl preview. This week, we won't pick our prediction this week, but we'll kind of preview it as the 49ers play the Chiefs. This is a rematch of Super Bowl 54, where the Chiefs won 31-20 against the 49ers. In that game, the Chiefs were down 20-10 with 8:53 left in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs proceeded to score 21 unanswered points. What do you think are the keys to this upcoming game next week?
Key difference is you have Brock Purdy as a quarterback and not Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, I look forward to seeing how Brock Purdy performs in this. He's had a lot of hate, and he's really proved it wrong the last several weeks just by winning the games. I mean, he's finished both games very well. Not started off the best in some of them, but it is what it is. I mean, I think he's performed pretty decent in the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Brock Purdy performs. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Chiefs perform as well with Mahomes.
Yeah, some things to look forward to. The 49ers' run defense has struggled over the past 2 weeks. Gave up 136 yards to the Packers, and they gave up 182 to the Lions. The Chiefs ranked 12th in yards per attempt and 18th in yards per game. The Chiefs kind of built their narrative this year at the end of the season on their running with Pacheco. And so I think that could be a big key in the game. The 49ers really struggled to stop the run the last two previous weeks. But another key is the Chiefs, their defense ranks second in the NFL and points allowed at 17.3 per game. The 49ers offense ranks third in the NFL with 28.9 points per game. So that'll be a key matchup. Who can win the battle between the 49ers offense and the Chiefs defense? Which the Chiefs defense has performed really well over basically the whole season performed really well, especially the last 2 weeks where they've held really good quarterbacks to limited numbers. Austin, you want to take us into our next topic?
Yes, so we are going to start talking about college basketball now. So now that the NFL is winding down, we're going to start bringing in new segments like college basketball and eventually probably some baseball and all that. Right now, college basketball is in full swing right now with a lot of good games coming up this week. But first, on this college basketball segment, we are going to talk about who our favorite team is so you kind of know what our bias is and why it's our favorite team. So first, Zach's going to talk about his favorite team, and then I'll say who mine is.
Yeah, so I'm a North Carolina fan. They did lose last night, the Georgia Tech on the road after winning 10 games in a row. So today's not a good day for Zach. He's still under the weather by his voice, and then North Carolina lost last night on a controversial ending. So last night was not a fun night for Zach.
Sorry, but game's game. I'm a Butler fan, so we're from Indiana. So, it's reasonable that I'm a Butler fan and not a bandwagon for North Carolina.
Alrighty.
I've been a Butler fan for a while. We've been struggling the last several years. Dad's got him going and rolling this year. I think we got a pretty decent team around the bubble, so that's going to be interesting coming down the stretch. But, I've been a Butler fan for a while. Went to a lot of games. I actually went to the last one this weekend, versus Villanova, where we won a double overtime. That was a crazy game. But, yeah, let's get talking about the rest of the world in college basketball. First, we're going to talk about the AP Top 25 and our overall thoughts on that.
Well, I think anytime we talk about the AP Top 25, I don't think it's a direct underline how good the teams really are. The AP poll is really recency biased, in my opinion. And I look more towards bracketology and stuff like that, where you want to rank the teams. But like some of the AP Top 25 voters, I don't necessarily agree with who's on the list. I think we need to lower the who's on the list. We got baseball experts on who voting for the top 25, who not say they don't know anything about college basketball. Not that I know anything more than they do, but I don't know if we should be directing a poll that means a lot in the eyes of a lot of people for people who don't even are experts on the sport. But I don't know, that's why. But talking about the teams in the top 25, I think is what you want me to talk about.
Well, I noticed both. I mean, I agree with you on the AP Top 25. Last week on the Field 6A, they're talking about recency bias, the AP Top 25, and it's a big thing. So
yeah, well, the overall thoughts, I think the clear best two teams in the country are Purdue and UConn. Obviously, UConn's number one and Purdue's number two, and I would have said the top three teams are pretty clear, but North Carolina lost last night. But I still think they're really good. At the end of the game, if the foul is called, which was called for Duke on Saturday against Clemson,
settle down.
Literally the same exact foul, worst foul. I think the four best teams are UConn, Purdue, North Carolina, and Houston, and I don't think that's going to change this week.
That's kind of my thing. I think the top four are pretty much set. Tennessee lost last night to South Carolina. I do think Tennessee is a very good team, but South Carolina, they're going to be ranked next week, and they've been getting a lot of hate this year, so it's good to see a different team rise up there. South Carolina has not been really too good for several years. They went to, I think, a Final Four run.
2017, yeah.
Yep. So, I don't know. Big Ten's down this year. Big East, they're pretty top-heavy. A lot of bubble teams. So, next, we're going to talk about who you think might not make the tournament that's in the AP Top 25 right now. So, Zach, what do you think?
I'd probably say one of those mid-major schools that are not mid-major, but lower-level conference schools who are in the top 25 right now. Just because if you rack up a few bad losses, that will hurt your resume. Like Florida Atlantic, I mean, I think they'll make the tournament. If they lose a couple more games, they'll be on the bubble. I think teams like New Mexico and Utah State, even though they have a good record, they haven't played a tough schedule. So I think with those teams, if you lose a couple bad losses, it'll put you in distance and not make the tournament. And then I think some of the top level schools who are like the 5th or 6th best team in their conference, if you pick up a bad loss like the Louisville or the Paul or something like that, then I see a lot of the top 25 teams as teams who could succeed in March, and there's a lot of teams outside of it that I could see not make the tournament, like Texas and teams like that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you're going to say someone that might not make the tournament, I think it'd be like New Mexico or, even Florida Atlantic. I mean, they have not really looked that good this year. Barely won a lot of games recently. Even Memphis in that conference, they've been struggling. But I think the majority of those teams will make it. All right, before we go into our next segment about college basketball, we're going to talk about who your favorite team is right now in college basketball.
Probably UConn. I think they're obviously the number one team in the country. But I think with them is that Cleveland's he's got back from injury, and I think even without him, they were playing really well. And I think he provides something that not a lot of guys provide in the country with his lob threat. No, I think UConn's deep. You got 5 or 6 guys who could put up 20 on you. So even though Purdue is really good, I think Purdue has flaws that UConn could handle. I think Purdue's guards are not as physical as UConn's guards are. So I think with those two teams, I think those are clearly the 2 best teams, as I said earlier. But I think I'll give the edge to UConn right now.
I think it's going to be UConn for me as well. Hurley's got it. He's a really good coach. I'm not necessarily a fan of his antics on the sidelines, but I do think UConn is my favorite team right now. It's pretty much all the points that covers, so there's not really any point of me saying anything else but UConn. All right, we're going to be previewing the upcoming slate of college basketball games. As you know, this weekend is a big weekend for college basketball. Honestly, one of the best we've had in a while, with a bunch of ranked teams that are inside the top 10 playing each other. So first, we're going to start off with number 4 Houston versus number 8 Kansas. This game is on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to make a prediction on that. So first, I'm going to say Kansas, I believe, will win this game. Why do I think Kansas is going to win it? Well, I think it's a must-win situation for Kansas to remain a contender for a national title. Recently, they have not been playing well. Just their depth has been a big problem for them. So I think playing at home will be a key factor in this. So that's why I'm going to say Kansas.
Yeah, their depth is a major factor. Last night, they were showing graphs on ESPN between the games. Kansas ranks almost last in bench production, which is something you wouldn't expect from a talented program who receives a lot of good recruits and transfers. But I think I'm going to go with Houston this game. I think defensively, Houston bothers Kansas. They're ranked number 1 in defensive efficiency in the country. Houston is. And I know the game is played at Allen Fieldhouse, which is probably the toughest environment to play in college basketball. But I think Houston gets it done. I think they slow down Dickinson with their size and length. And I think McCullough, who didn't even play last night because of knee soreness, I think he struggles with Houston's guards defending.
The next game we're going to talk about is number 5 Tennessee versus number 10 Kentucky. This game is slated to start at 8:30 on ESPN. So for me, I'm going to be picking Tennessee in this game. This is one of my hot takes, I guess you would call that. But I think the key to this game pretty much is Dalton Knecht. I think he's going to play very well, like he does most games. I think Tennessee will go into Kentucky and beat them on the road. Also, honestly, I think it helps that they lost the first game this week because they're going to be on fire going into this game.
Yeah, I do think you mentioned Dalton Knecht. I think he plays really well. I don't know anyone on Kentucky who's going to be able to guard him. But I think Kentucky wins this game. I think Kentucky could score on Tennessee, which is a big factor. If you can score on Tennessee, you can win. And so I think they do. Kentucky's guards are really elite. Shot makers, Antonio Reeves, and all the freshman guards. So I think Kentucky wins this game at home.
All right, next game we're going to talk about is number 7 Duke versus number 3 North Carolina. UNC is currently sitting at 9-1 now. So based off of that, the league's getting pretty tight, pretty much what we're saying. So this is pretty much a massive game for North Carolina and Duke. My pick for this one is going to be North Carolina. Why? Playing at home and the dominance they had been playing with lately was kind of my main reasoning, but I still think they're a dominant team. They did not shoot too well last night, which I don't think that would be a problem. This is Duke, North Carolina. So I do think North Carolina is a better team in general. North Carolina all the way.
Yeah, well, this is the greatest rivalry in sports. No debate about it. I want to bring this up. The Saturday for Duke and North Carolina will be the 49th meeting where both Duke and North Carolina are both AP top 10. Not only is that 35 more than any other matchup, but the rivals are split their averages and wins of the last of those 48 meetings. North Carolina having 24 wins, Duke having 24 wins. And so obviously Duke, North Carolina is always going to bring the hype whether teams are ranked or not. For my prediction, I'm always going to go UNC. That's a shocker, but I think last year when Duke beat us twice, Lively did a really nice job defending Baycott. And obviously Lively's not there this year, and I think Duke lacks rim protection with Filipkowski. And so I think Baycott, even though Baycott hasn't been playing well, I think North Carolina makes an emphasis to throw it into him. When Baycott got the ball last night, he played well, and they stopped throwing it to him. So I think get Baycott going in that game, and which will lead to, I think, Duke having to double team him, or, unless they're going to let him dominate the whole game, which I think Harrison Ingram and McCormack Ryan will have a good game because of that. They did not play well last night, but Harrison Ingram in his press conference said that this is a game that loss last time will motivate them, and that they will shoot better. And so I think unlike last year, Duke will not dare those two guys to shoot the ball like they did with Pete Nance and Leaky Black. So I'm gonna take North Carolina, especially since they're at home too.
Yeah, 100% agree with the home statement. Our last game, number 2 Purdue versus number 6 Wisconsin. Right now, it is very tight in the race for the lead in the Big Ten, so this is a massive game. This is at Wisconsin, and this is on Sunday at 1 p.m. on CBS. Who do I pick? Well, I think we're going to have to go with Purdue. One of my main reasons behind this is probably just because I'm not fully sold on Wisconsin yet. I do trust Purdue a lot more than I do Wisconsin, and I trust their ability to win on the road. Zach Edey has been dominant this entire season, and I do think Lawyer and Smith will play very well in this game, so I'm going to take Purdue here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Purdue wins this game. I think Purdue realizes now that the importance of winning these close games as they head into March, where they have recently underachieved. But I think the key in this matchup is Zach Edey. Obviously, he's a key matchup in every game. But when they played Arizona, Wisconsin, they lost by 25. Arizona center Byall had a really nice game. And I think if I don't think Wisconsin can really guard Zach Edey, not that anyone can, but I think Zach Edey will draw a lot of attention for Wisconsin, which will give guys like Brian Smith and Lance Jones and Fletcher Lawyer the opportunity to play well like they do most nights when teams triple team Zach Edey. But I think I'll take Purdue in this game.
All right, if you enjoyed this week's show, make sure to come back next week where we'll give our predictions on Super Bowl 58. Our show airs every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m.